there's co-ops that have nuclear, tens of thousands of employees. Then you have some that their town manager is the IT person, is the town manager, they're the utilities person. They're all wearing different hats and they have no time to do or think about any of the cyber things, especially in the cyber realm.
So welcome to Hack Dissection. Mike here, as usual. I'm back in the studio. I'm here with Wayne Koback today, and I'm going to let Wayne introduce himself a little bit. He and I have been actually spending a lot of time recently talking on several different fronts, and that's why I brought him on. I thought it was going to be really interesting to continue this conversation in a way that would benefit more than the two of us here. So without any further ado, Wayne, welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Thank you for having me. My name is Wayne Koback. I'm from NRECA. I'm part of our cyber team. We keep a lot of our members safe. We try to protect the grid as much as possible. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Just trying to keep everybody safe.
So what got you involved with the co-ops themselves? Like what were you doing before? And then what got you to NRECA?
Okay. Yeah. So I've always been in the utility sector. I was in the privatized investor-owned utilities, kind of within Canada, purchasing and acquiring new facilities. I liked it a lot. And then when I had moved to Florida and found out that, got into the co-op space, and I was like, wow, a lot of these small utilities really don't have it, have what they need to make themselves successful, right, in the cyber landscape. So that's kind of where the passion for me grew, because coming from investor owned, you have a lot of money, right? Rate cases, different things bring extra money into the fold. So you can do the cool firewalls, you can do the cool upgrades, all that kind of good stuff. But for a lot of these small member cities, a lot of them don't have even the staff to maintain a firewall, let alone even have a firewall. So that's where the passion for me really grew. And that's where it's almost like that family space. It makes you feel nice and warm and actually able to help somebody that helps out a local utility. It's in their town, with all their family members sometimes working it. So yeah, it's a really cool feeling. I enjoy it.
It almost sounds like to me, you're playing it, it's like playing a game, right? You're playing for like the big folks with all the money, making it really easy. And then you're starting again on hard mode, like going into these smaller organizations, these smaller co-ops, and just really trying to figure out more creative ways to help them out in different, different capacities, I suppose.
No, that's exactly it. So it's cool because, once, from my background, at least, I was able to do the cool big things, with all the money and unlimited budgets. And then when you flip over, it's like, okay, we can do the same thing, but now cheaper, right? So now we can help you move you in the cyber needle, from a 0 to a 1 without spending a lot of money or effort. And here's how we do it, like you said, creatively, right? I think that's a great space to be in. And that's why I love, doing that, thinking out of the box and being like, okay, how can we help you, but also increase everybody at the same time?
Yeah. And with utilities, obviously a huge impactful space to make contributions to really help out. If those grids go down, if there's any challenges or any issues with those, obviously the impacts are pretty widespread, very apparent to all of the customers and things. But let me understand the co-op side of it just a little bit better. I know you and I have talked about it a little bit. So NRECA itself is a co-op, and then all of the customers are co-ops. Is that it?
No. So we're actually a trade organization, but we have over 900 cooperatives under our umbrella who we help mold. We help get them, especially from our cyber side. We do things for them. We help them in creating a cyber goals program. We have conferences, we have learning events, all kinds of things. We start up a bunch of different programs to help them move their cyberspace forward. And then also, from the other side of NRECA, we do lobbying, obviously with the big boys in Washington. We do trainings, HR stuff. We're actually, I think, the third largest healthcare provider in the United States, just because of all the members that we have. So we do a lot ourselves, but the main goal and the mission, no matter which area of the company you're in, always comes back to how can we help our members move forward?
Got it. So you're really just trying to find ways to bring them all of the knowledge,
all
of
the information.
resources,
Exactly. Yep.
anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see.
And that's the biggest part, right? It gets really confusing really fast. You have 500 people flying at you and you don't know what's truth and what's not. So what we try to do is try to, hone the noise a little bit and say, okay, here is the ones that we not recommend, because we're truly not agnostic for what we do, but we say, here's the best in the space, here's your choices, and then you guys kind of can pick what you think is going to help your utility move forward. Now, but then we're behind them. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Do you feel like it's that those needs that those co-ops have, your members, do those change like depending on where they are in the country or where they are in the space or size, or is there kind of like a universal sort of need across the board for them?
So there's a saying floating around, which is kind of unique, and it's always the same thing as like, if you meet one co-op, you meet one co-op, right? They're not all the same. They're all different. There's co-ops that have nuclear, tens of thousands of employees. Then you have some that their town manager is the IT person, is the town manager, they're the utilities person. They're all wearing different hats and they have no time to do or think about any of the cyber things, especially in the cyber realm. So it's all over the place. And that's where I think we try to come in and say, okay, for instance, we created the cyber goals program, which is basically 20 goals. We broke them up. The first set of goals is 1 through 10 to say, okay, are you doing these basic easy 10 things to move forward? And then we kick it up with, level 2 and say, okay, now here's the next phase of that, right? I was at a presentation in Tennessee and they asked, well, where's the third round coming out at? And I had said to them, and I showed them the data that we had just put together, is saying, okay, really, we don't even have a lot of our co-ops even completing the first 10, not even touching, 11 through 20. So we're not going to create a third set, right? We really want to go back now and kind of help everybody through, at least to catch up through 1 through 10. Obviously, as you know, what's happening in the space already with Iran and different things happening, a lot of grids being taken down. So we really are pushing hard to make sure we are, making sure everyone's at least cyber aware, and then getting the leading practices in order to make that happen.
I think that there's something, with the Iran stuff, I didn't even really consider about how that's impacting everything right now. Probably a lot more stress for all those folks that are trying to manage those co-ops, just unknowns, right? How that's changing. But let me ask you this thing, and this is maybe a little bit out there. My concern lately, as it relates to the utility space, has been with all the new data center construction, all of those other things, like these massive mega places. Like, how are the co-ops like managing or dealing with those things that are coming up? And sometimes they're kind of rural, right? They're, we see things in the middle of the country here, and they're like, hey, we're going to set up this gigawatt or whatever size data center. How is that impacting things? Do you have any insight there?
I do, yeah. Actually, we were at a really good conference with AWS and a few others that when they build these data centers and they're doing a PPA, which is a power purchasing agreement among these small utilities, they're going in, like you said, there's land out in rural America to be like, hey, we're building this 5 million square foot data center, right? We're gonna make it huge. Well, the problem is, how do you get power to it? So they are pushing on these small utilities to say, hey, you build us the power, we're going to use it, but they're only doing the PPAs for a 3-year agreement. And a lot of these data centers have been pulling out. So Amazon was one of them. We've talked to Amazon and others that said that, hey, after 3 years, they evaluate what their output is. And the things that I think come across, especially in our technology realm, things shrink down, right? Years ago, the same amount of servers now are half a rack. You can do the same amount of computing power. So they don't need the big buildings anymore. They can consolidate that. They can move that to a different location. And now the utility is left holding the bag that just built a 25 to 30-year asset sitting out there, is now, again, sitting out there because they're never going to have that power demand unless another big person like a data center or a company moves into that space, which, as well as I do, is very hard to do because, getting people to move from LA or New York to move to the middle of Kansas, it's hard to do. Musk's been lucky because Musk has been able to build Texas, rural Texas area into his little mega city, if you will. So, Tesla's out there, SpaceX, all those, and the data centers. So it's easy to get people to move out there because they have room to grow and they're building more things to help them. But the small utilities in small cities just don't have that ability. So those people moving, it's going to be hard to keep them.
There's a couple of things that popped up here, and I appreciate all that insight, but that makes a lot of sense. Like if they're trying to come in and say, basically, we need all this power, but we're only going to commit to 3 years, and they have to, the power companies have to invest a ton. Like that's a huge decision to try and, I don't even know how you approach something like that from that utility space. But I'm curious too, like as you've been involved with this for a while, when we saw that transition from everything on-prem to everything in cloud, and all of those servers, all of those things that all these companies were hosting in-house and everything, did that have any sort of tangible impact on the power space, like across the country, or was it not as significant?
Not as significant because you're just transferring one to the other. Obviously, you're getting more, less power usage. Because like I said, when you're having a server now or a stack, you can bring in 15 clients on one server versus, one server sitting in one location, in, rural America or wherever. So now that server is being utilized, they're only using a portion of that power, and then everybody can kind of share that power. But again, they are building these big giant infrastructures in certain areas that take more power from the local utility, not as a grid as a whole, right? So now before it was kind of dispersed, right? Everybody had their little servers on-prem, and now they've moved up to the cloud. Well, now you have one location housing all of those. Well, now that one location needs, gig power, and everything. So that's kind of the struggle that they're dealing with.
Going back to the Iran thing a little bit, I remember there was some sort of situation where one of those big data centers got hit, right? Was it OpenAI or somewhere like that got, I don't know if it's even functional or anything at this space.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say the biggest one that just opened up a lot of moments for a lot of people that, a lot of people are saying, oh my goodness, is that the Mythos that just happened, right? That was a vendor who exported some data out. And as you know, as you've been following, as we've been talking about as well, is that now all of those vulnerabilities are now, all that code is out in the open as well. So now things they've been finding from 25, 30 years ago that have been open have now been exposed. They've pulled that now into the utility space where all these different vendors are now, like you said, are like we talked about, are finding them and now saying, oh man, how do we go back now and fix this quickly? Again, all these utilities have older equipment, they can't afford to update. So it's really affecting them as a whole. Okay, now we have exposure, and they've told people at some of the utilities to turn some of their stuff off. Rockwell Automation is one of them, and a couple other brands are saying just take it offline. Do not even have it online right now because it's that scary. They have full access to everything and they can control it remotely. So now, as we talk about these vendors coming in, they never put security first. Sure. And it's sad to say, and it's everywhere. It's with solar panels. It's with older equipment, other IoT devices. It's security second, and we'll patch it and hope and pray that nothing happens, right? So here we are. Now we're finding those vulnerabilities. Now our best solution is just turn it off. Well, that's great, but that's not a lifetime fix. That's a Band-Aid. So as we have to really push on these vendors, and that's why we really try to advocate for our members to go to these bigger, the GEs, the Rockwells. They can't do it individually. Like we talked about, the small rural, in Kansas can't go to Rockwell Automation and be like, oh, we're not going to use your product anymore if you don't fix it. They're going to say, okay, well, you're one person, right? But if we all stand up together and say, hey, we are going to move to a different vendor altogether, then that kind of shakes some trees, and going back to your other point of saying, okay, how do we push these AI companies, doing the PPAs? There's actually legislation we're pushing across as well to helping the administration write some rules in place to say, hey, look, Amazon, Microsoft, if you are going to build these things, you either have to cost shed all of it instead of putting the load back, the cost load back on the actual utility members, or you write a longer agreement that says, hey, if you break it, you are going to cover it at the end and say, hey, so we all kind of walk away clean. This way there's no huge bag left holding for somebody at the other end.
I like that the co-ops are able to kind of group together there and kind of rise up, as a collective there. Obviously, that's the point of these co-ops, but even just having multiple ones there to reduce that opportunity to kind of get bullied or pushed around by these multi-billion-dollar organizations. So that's great to see. And obviously, we're the structure of this show and this episode is about cybersecurity and challenges and things of that nature. But you mentioned that there's challenges like getting people to take on those opportunities at these co-ops and things. But do you think that there's a lack of maybe awareness of those opportunities, or is it strictly because of the geographics for some of those things? Because I know the cyber realm right now, if you throw up like a pen testing job or something in related to security, it's like you'll get 1,000 applicants right away. So clearly there's a lot of people ready to dive into this stuff, but maybe only in specific instances. So how can people learn more about those opportunities for making actual tangible contributions to a critical infrastructure if they want to get involved and really start their careers in cyber?
Yeah, that's a really great segue, actually, because I really we were at a conference in Kentucky, and obviously after we did a tour at one of the whiskey tour places, an event for everybody to kind of go through. Well, they actually have SCADA as well, right? So when it's kind of funny you say this, because I get it all the time to say, okay, if I'm learning SCADA and my utility in the middle of nowhere, what does that do for me? They don't understand that SCADA and these things run across the board, whether you're in, manufacturing, whether you're in a utility, whiskey distillery, you still run SCADA type software, and having that knowledge on how to secure it, best practices, that makes you very, very marketable. And not saying that these, and I think it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you have the local co-ops and owners saying, oh man, if we train so-and-so, they're going to be gone tomorrow once they get all this skill set, right? That might not be the case. You have to take that risk in your people, and you have to trust that they're going to do the right thing. And if they do leave, you have to be happy for them if that's the choice that they're going to do, right? But you have some people that live in a town, they grew up in the town, they have their family in their town, they're never going to leave. But giving them that knowledge for the future and to protect your utility currently is huge. And I think that's the most important takeaway, is that everybody should be pushing towards, learning, or at least preparing their staff for these type of events. We've had utilities get hit in Texas and other areas where the admin's calling us and he's sweating. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I am totally lost. And that's fine. We all have those situations, right? Not everybody knows every situation. You're not going to train for every situation. But the main thing is getting enough practice and enough training to say, okay, I know who to call, I know who to reach out to, and expanding your knowledge. No one's ever going to know everything in one space. That's impossible, right? But it's me, hey, Mike, I really need your help for this, because, we just don't have the expertise in this area, and you'd be happy to reach out, right? And there are, different groups out there. There's EISAC, there's CISA, CMA, Cyber Mutual Assistance, that's out there for everybody, and everybody can talk blanketed. They sign, NDA saying, okay, how can we help each other? And I think that's the most important takeaway, is we all need communication with each other. And the utility area, and that's again why I love the utilities. We talked about it, the not investor owned, but the rural and co-ops, is that it's a family. They'll all talk to each other. You can go in there and they'll talk about, their best cornbread or their best cow, and everybody's having a good time. But again, it's the openness, right? And they're not ashamed to be like, hey, I know I need to do this, but I just don't know how to get started. And some of it is a little scary because we will go in and try to do a pen test or different things. Some people will get scared or try to block it and say, oh man, if you find this out, then I'm in trouble. But it's also on the flip side, letting them know, no, we're here to help you, right? So that they're willing to get us into the door, they're willing to talk to us, but sometimes a little harder to convince them that we are really trying to do the right thing for them. We're not trying to get anybody fired or lose their job. For sure, we're just trying to move the needle forward. But again, offering training, and we talked about if there's a lot of free resources out there to say, hey, look, at these co-op events, get everyone together and say, hey, look, there's free training for your team to be part of this, right? Everybody should know a certain level of cybersecurity in order to help prevent you from these attacks in the future. And I think that's it. I mean, no one's going to be, the level 5, cyber engineer for the NSA, by doing a couple training classes at a local utility, right? So the idea is really just to get them trained up and make them feel better about themselves, to know that they understand their job and what they're protecting, right? Because they are protecting very important things. It's a lot different than, a bottling industry, and Coca-Cola gets shut down. Okay, nobody gets their Coca-Cola for a couple of days. We may, if we make mistakes in the utility grid, that shuts down hospitals, lifelines, support, different things. And it's a very, very scary and realistic, almost like a badge of honor once you step into this space to realize what you can affect and what you can prevent, right? And it makes you into a hero. And, they say all the time, become a cyber hero. And I'm like, man, it's really true that we are really protecting good things, and I think that's the message that a lot of them need to understand, that we can really do great things, but just a little bit of training makes you even more valuable.
I think it's important to really push that point too. Like if you're looking for the ability to start and create and have a career that's going to be pretty stable, it's not like power is going anywhere, right? So
No.
if you want something that's going to be reliable, consistent, you can learn in, you can grow in, and then like you said, you can really help out the community depending on where you are. I know lots of people that are really happy with that type of lifestyle. You know what I mean? There's some like myself that are like, I always have to be learning. I always got to be pushing myself. And there's some that are like, hey, I want to learn. I want to do my job. I want to do a good job. And then I want to go home and relax and, make cornbread or whatever the case may be. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to spread that message for, everybody that's coming out of the schools in these cyber programs, and they're looking for something, and they're all going after, those really high impact or high, profile types of
high dollar jobs. Yeah. The Googles, the Apples. But like we talked about, I've friends that I went to with college, right? They all some went to Apple, some Microsoft, but they're calling me, oh man, there's layoffs this week. They're laying off 20, 30,000 people. I might be in that boat. I've never had to worry about that, because the utility industry, whether it's water, gas, electric, natural gas, any of that, you're always going to have a job, right? You're never going to be out of a position unless you put yourself out of a position. But again, there's always opportunity to, like you said, always opportunity for learning. And I think that's the most important, is that I think, as managers and leaders, sometimes we get a little over, rambunctious and say, oh, we have to train them. We have to make sure this person knows all this stuff. Well, like you said, everybody has a part to play in the cyber world, or even in IT in general. You're always going to have those people that want to be help desk guys. They don't want to do anything else. They don't want to be server guys, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We need those, right? We need great help desk folks on the front lines, triaging the people, dealing with, hey, my computer doesn't work, and they're angry and yelling, but you have good people that have the skill to be like, hey, make a couple jokes, calm them down, and then fix their problem. Then you have, when I had a team, the last position I had, I had networking guys that did not want to talk to anybody. They just want to stay in their queue and just do stuff behind the firewall. And that's perfectly fine. They were awesome at what they did. So I wasn't going to try to push them and be like, oh, well, now you got to be a public speaker because we need you to be. That's not, I'm like, the opportunity is there, but I'm not going to force you. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think we need to understand. We need to really understand the people, talk to our IT personnel and really get to know them and say, hey, what are your 5-year, 10-year, 15-year goals, right? Because right now you may talk to somebody that says, hey, the first 5 years of my life, I just had a kid. I don't want to be traveling and doing all this crazy stuff, working extra hours and whatever. So I just want to be on the help desk, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and call it a day. And then when my kid gets older, then I can be on the network team and the NOC and the SOC and doing, extra things after hours, or being available 24/7 to make that extra money. But I think it's really important to know, just creating a life, I call it lifespan, but people call it a roadmap, different terminologies. But it's where you are at your particular life, where you want to go, right? I mean, like I said, everybody's different at different stages, and sometimes it doesn't happen till late, and sometimes, like you said, I mean, people come right out of college and like, boom, I want to hit the ground running and do everything I possibly can, right? And those people are awesome. Those are great. But also we need everybody to make it happen. It's not just one individual that saves a company from a ransom attack or any kind of cyber incident. It's everybody coming together as a whole and helping everybody move forward, because everybody has different skill sets.
Yeah. And you made a good point there earlier about the training people up, making them more skilled at their job, and then having that concern about, well, what happens if they leave? And that's something that I've obviously experienced over the time in the jobs that I've had in the past. And I never really liked the idea of trying to tie the opportunities for you to get better at your job with some sort of restrictions on, well, now you have to be here
More
for some
marketable.
amount of
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I'm more of the thing of, hey, if they want to be here and if they're enjoying it here and we're working together with them, then they're going to stay because they're happy and they're doing those things. But to not invest in people because you're worried about them, I mean, it feels like you're just shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. So I would definitely would advise, or my thoughts on that for the co-ops or for any of those organizations out there is it's always worth the investment, because even if they end up going somewhere else, they're going to be benefiting from, yes, the training or the learning that they've done, but that's also going to impact where they go next. Maybe they go to another co-op that's in a better location for them, and you're helping out, some of your friends or some of your those people that you're really close with, or maybe they go somewhere else, and that's okay too. But I think that being scared of it and being concerned about it is one thing, but it's still worth the investment for sure.
Oh yeah, no, and as well as I do. I mean, you can really frustrate a top performer, and they feel stifled and say, okay, well, I have no growth here. I have no, and you never want to hear that from your team and your staff to say, I feel like I have nowhere to go. And especially if they want to. And like you said, I mean, the prime example is we had someone leave one of the co-ops that I had worked with. They went around, went outside, they got trained up, came back because they love the co-op so much, but the co-op just didn't have funds in order to train them, right? They wanted training and they were able to do it. They said, hey, go do what you want to do. They lost him for a little bit, but then he came back and he's like, yeah, I really enjoyed. You go out and you spread your wings and you're like, the grass isn't really greener as I thought it would be. But then they come right back. And that's the point we talk about, is always leaving on a good foot, never burn any bridges. And I think, when you have that mindset of, oh, I'm not going to train that person because they're well suited for the job they're doing. Well, you always want to train them for your job or the next position, because they'll be happier, they'll stay longer. And a lot of people miss that boat. And then when they leave, like you said, they leave very angry or a negative role on the company. And then there is no word of mouth. And who's to say they're not passing by somebody in a conference or in an airplane or anywhere and saying, hey, oh my gosh, so-and-so just graduated with their cybersecurity degree, they're really green. Oh man, go work at this co-op. This is where I started. It's a great entry level, get you going. And then you can, go off to something else or stay if you want, versus, if you have an opening and now somebody's saying, oof, I wouldn't work there. I wouldn't even send my, worst enemy to work at that place. Those are the things that really can hurt you negatively as well, right? You want people to build up your co-op and say, yeah, this is a great place to be. This is a great family.
That's one of the things that was most surprising to me, is because I'm a big advocate in trying to help connect people, especially new graduates or anybody in the industry that are trying to find their next job. And before you ended up reaching out to me for context, Wayne messaged me just out of the blue on LinkedIn and was like, hey, I think that we should talk. I think there's a lot of interesting conversations that we can have and some opportunities there. I don't think that I've come across somebody that came out of that utility co-op space to even understand like what opportunities were there. So I think that there's certainly a lack of, I guess, exposure, or a lack of, spreading that awareness to people. So maybe a question for you: how can we get people to find out more about these opportunities or find out how they can support these co-ops?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what really drove it home for me is we have our event, is Co-op Cyber Tech, every year, and we just bring all the utilities together, and it's strictly just cyber focused. And one of the co-op managers there his security team was talking about how he really has a bad job keeping people. Retention's hard once they leave. It's hard to get people back in, or how to sell it. And he goes to high schools and colleges trying to sell them on the idea. And I took that away this year, and that's something that obviously me and Mike, we've talked about, is like, how can we really push this, because this is a really good thing. I think a lot of people coming out of college, as you say, want to hit the big names, get good things, and everybody wants to be there. But again, some of the utilities they have really good pensions still, excellent health benefits. I mean, I can tell you, NRECA has got great health benefits, right? When you look at it. And a lot of people don't realize that until you need your health benefits, right? And especially pensions. Not a lot of places do pensions anymore. That's your whatever you made your salary. That's your salary for now till you die, basically. So that's a good safe haven, a safe net that a lot of companies don't have, right? A lot of them do offer, we'll give you so much stock and signing bonuses, but that stuff gets taxed and that stuff gets spent really fast. The company goes bankrupt, stock's not worth anything anyway. So, and again, it's like, where do you want to put your time and effort? Something that's going to be, you look and can see a change and something you're doing in a positive light, or is it something you just want to, put in 12 to 15 hours a week working at, Tesla or X just to get a bigger bonus that's going to get taxed, right? Or do you want to work your 8 to 5 and have time off with your family and a less stressful life, but a guaranteed job, right? That we talk about. And I think that that's something that we are trying to focus on as well from NRECA side to say, okay, how can we promote these jobs? And we try to do the best we can, but it's really hard to hit everywhere. And also it's really hard to sell, especially, the early, 21, 22-year-old that, oh man, nothing's going to happen to me, I'm invincible. That having good health care is a really good thing over a bonus, so it's a hard space, but we're doing the best that we can to promote it, doing things like this, talking about it on your podcast and doing different things to say, hey, here's some really good opportunities. You really got to make it, really can make a difference and really can make things happen.
And I think that's it's awesome to have, something like that, or have somebody like you out there to help spread that a little bit. And I'm with you though. Like as I'm getting older, I realized how short-sighted some of those things are. When I was out of college, I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do that. And now it's just like, no, I wouldn't take a job at some of those big companies anymore. It sounds so stressful. It's just like you're working super, super intensely for so many hours and things. And, man, I would rather take that, something a little bit more laid back at some point, especially as I get older. So definitely some good advice for some of the students out there is to consider that. And I mean, yeah, some of these may be in rural areas or whatever, but there's some really awesome places across the country that you can just really enjoy it. And
also, like we talked about, cheap housing, right? I mean, you go to rural America and you can buy, 15, 20 acres for a couple $100,000 with a house on it. You go to LA or New York and you're getting a 10 by 10 room for 200,000. So it's a huge difference. It depends on everybody's lifestyle, right? And I think if people wanted to lay back a little bit, like you said, relax, get more of the quality of life type of thing, the rural America and the co-ops are definitely a great place to look.
Absolutely. And man, I hate that we have to cut this short a little bit today, but I do want to have let you get an opportunity in here for anything that's coming up, anything that we can spread that awareness to, share some information for people learning about upcoming events, opportunities, anything there that you can think of off the top of your head.
Yeah, definitely NRECA.coop. Go there. Definitely review. We have tons of events, whether it's big or small. We have cyber events. If you contact any of us from member security at NRECA.com, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I mean, ask us anything. We're literally here to help and drive the next wave of security professionals, even IT folks in that next direction, and giving them the, hey, I'm thinking about this. Do you think this is a good move? And we can say, hey, look, this is a great move, or here's some pitfalls, things that we've seen, right? So I think, just having those contacts and reaching out is the most important.
Awesome. And am I going to see you next week over at Hack Space?
Yes, you will. I will be there.
Awesome. Can't wait to chat some more. We have a lot to talk about, I know. Anyway, Wayne, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time for this. I think that there's a lot more that we could talk about here. So maybe a part 2 at some point in the future, but I appreciate your time and look forward to talking with you a little bit more next week.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for everything.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.